Welcome back to Anatomy and Physiology. This is video 11 of chapter 10, part 1 on muscle fibers and contraction. So now we're going to start putting this whole process together, the sliding filament model, the cross bridge cycle, in something called excitation contraction coupling. This is basically the combination of the nervous and muscular systems. So this is a process where we have action potentials causing muscle contraction. So we have an excitatory effect of the motor neuron. So the motor neuron is efferent, if you remember. So our origin of this action potential is going to be either the brain or the spinal cord, so the central nervous system. And the end is going to be the muscle fibers. So this is the effector. So remember that at the end of a neuron, we have the axon spreading out into those presynaptic terminals that we can have thousands of them. So basically what we have is one nerve that is going to innervate the whole way along an entire muscle. And so those presynaptic terminals are going to spread on out all over the muscle to spread that action potential out so the muscle can all contract in one big unit. So the action potentials we know are electrical impulses caused by depolarization of the nerve membrane that travels along the nerve via saltatory conduction. So that is going to be our definition of an action potential, an electrical impulse caused by the depolarization of the nerve membrane that travels along the nerve via saltatory conduction. We went over how this forms. So it took us like 2 weeks to talk about this, and now we have it down in one sentence. But this diagram down here is going to show us what is going on at this junction of the presynaptic terminal and the generation of an action potential. So we know what happens, and we're going to review what happens right here in this little space in one of our next videos. But let's just say that we have an action potential generated in the postsynaptic membrane. So we're going to move to the next place or the next part, and we'll refer back to here as we go along. Unfortunately, this is not on the same page. So with this process, number one, the action potential is produced in the postsynaptic membrane, and that would be the sarcolemma or the muscle cell membrane. So this action potential travels along or is propagated along the sarcolemma and into the T tubules. So that is, remember that the T tubules are right here, and they go into this and travel around the whole myofibril and whole muscle fiber. And they are between the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So number two, we can see that inside of this sarcoplasmic reticulum, we have calcium ions that are stored. So we mentioned that before. But located in those T tubules. As they are being depolarized, the depolarization causes gated calcium channels in the sarcoplasmic reticulum to open. And because that calcium is concentrated in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, especially in this terminal cisternae area right here, where we have the triad, and in these terminal cisternae, we end up with a concentration gradient. So calcium plus 2 diffuses out of the SR into the sarcoplasm. So it moves down its concentration gradient. So that is a process in which the calcium gets in there. And then 3 and 4 are going to be what we have been talking about. So the calcium ions bind to troponin, and tropomyosin moves active sites exposed. And then 4, we have a cross bridge forms. And then we go through the cross bridge cycle. So it has taken us probably about 3 or 4 weeks to describe what we just went over in this video, but we are doing it on a very, very small molecular level. But think about how fast this does occur. So anytime we move a muscle, all of this has to happen. So in our next video, we're going to look a little bit more in depth about what happens at the neuromuscular junction.